Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're pulling the top findings from dozens of developer deep dives to decode what is literally the biggest, most jaw-dropping AI software acquisition in history. We're talking about a tool that completely flipped the script on how we build software, turning regular developers into multi-agent orchestrators, and catching the eye of the world's most valuable companies. Okay, let's just jump right in. $60 billion. That is the unprecedented all-stock price tag SpaceX agreed to pay for Cursor. And this happened right on the heels of SpaceX's own massive $85 billion IPO back in June of 2026. I mean, for a company founded just a few years earlier by a 25-year-old MIT dropout, that valuation is just staggering. But it really makes you wonder, why on earth would a rocket company drop $60 billion on a code editor? Well, to understand why, there's a prevailing thought that hits the nail on the head. The frontier AI race is no longer the most important race. The real battle is shifting towards specialized intelligence. This perfectly captures the industry's mood right now. The whole race to build those massive, generalized, know-it-all models, it's incredibly expensive and, honestly, kind of a loss leader at this point. But specialized intelligence, systems fine-tuned for highly lucrative, economically productive work like coding, that's where the real money is. SpaceX wasn't just buying software. They were buying a specialized intelligence engine to literally fuel their next phase of growth. And the financials behind Cursor made it an absolutely irresistible target. Just consider their timeline. Most legendary software companies, they take years, sometimes decades, just to scrape together $100 million in annual recurring revenue. Cursor, they hit $100 million in January of 2025. Then, by February 2026, boom, over $2 billion. And by mid-2026, they were sitting at a $4 billion annualized revenue run rate. Let that sink in. It is the fastest-growing software company in history, period. Now, a massive driver behind all this crazy growth is a cultural shift called vibe coding. Basically, vibe coders aren't sitting there manually typing out every single line of syntax anymore. No way. Instead, they're directing and orchestrating AI coding agents using just natural language. Actually, there's this wild story floating around the developer community about a 12-year-old kid pulling in $50,000 a month, and he described using Cursor not as a helpful little assistant, but as a digital lash to drive multiple AI agents forward all at once. Cursor just became the undisputed home base for this entirely new way of working. Section 1. Under the Hood, Cursor 3.0, Moving Beyond the VS Code Fork. So initially, Cursor was famous for brilliantly duct-taping AI features onto Microsoft's open-source VS Code editor. But Cursor 3.0, that was completely rewritten from scratch. And that architectural shift is exactly why it absolutely crushes tools like GitHub Copilot. It's not just a simple extension anymore. By completely rebuilding the core in Rust and TypeScript, it became a dedicated home for agents. This Rust rewrite is absolutely crucial because it unlocks extreme performance and RAM efficiency, letting you handle massive AI operations completely seamlessly, whether you're running locally or in the cloud. Comparing the two versions perfectly captures the evolution here. With Cursor 2.0, you were basically the airline captain. You were still flying the plane, using features like Cursor Tab for hyper-smart multi-line autocomplete to help you along. But Cursor 3.0, it turns you into the air traffic controller. You are now managing these massive concurrent swarms of AI agents, deploying them across multiple repos, and running autonomous cloud operations all at the exact same time. The goal is to keep you focused purely on high-level logic, not the tedious manual typing. Section 2. Composer 2. The new model. Challenging the frontier models. All right, let's talk about Composer 2, because this in-house model was built specifically for coding, and wow, does it dramatically undercut the big frontier models. While models like GPT 5.5 or Opus 4.7 were charging around $5 per million input tokens and up to $30 for output, Composer 2 came in at just 50 cents for input and only $2.50 for output. That's a massive difference. Plus, it's doing all of this while running 4 times faster than the standard. It is honestly just a logistical masterpiece. Now, this incredible leap forward didn't exactly happen without a bit of drama. Reports started surfacing that Composer 2 was actually built on top of an open-source foundation model from China called Kimi K2. And Kimi K2 had faced accusations of being trained on Claude's outputs. Cursor's executives impartially confirmed they used the open-source base, but argued they strictly followed licensing and then heavily modified it using their own proprietary reinforcement learning. But honestly, regardless of the debate, the product's momentum completely overshadowed the controversy in the market.
I mean, it self-improves every 5 hours based on user data, which is just insane.
Which brings us right back to the SpaceX buyout. What did Elon Musk actually pay $60 billion for? Well, they didn't just buy an IDE, and they didn't just buy a model. They bought the loop. Cursor owns the workflow where millions of developers are generating these massive proprietary feedback loops every single day. Think about it. Every single code acceptance, every bug fix, every single rejected line of code, it all trains the system. That right there is an unassailable moat that just throwing money at a problem can't easily replicate. Section 3. Pro workflows and best models, how the community actually builds. So, despite Composer 2's blazing speed and those crazy low costs we just talked about, professional developers still heavily favor Claude 3.5 Sonnet for the actual heavy lifting. When you break down community preferences, around 60% of pro workflows rely on Claude 3.5 Sonnet. Why? Because it really remains the gold standard for those complex, highly intricate coding tasks. Composer 2 takes up about 25% of the pie, mostly for rapid agentic swarming, but yeah, Claude is still very much the king of logic. Now, a massive part of getting any of these models to work properly is mastering context. And the absolute crucial pro skill here is context tagging. If you just ask an AI to build an app, it's going to hallucinate big time. Instead, the pros use the @ symbol to explicitly guide the AI. They'll type @files to link the exact components they want changed. They use @web so the AI pulls the absolute latest API documentation from the internet before it even writes a line of code. They'll even use @browser to have the AI literally look at a visual UI bug on their screen and just fix the spacing instantly. It's like magic. And for the true power users out there, the workflows get even deeper. We're talking setting up .cursor rules files to permanently instruct the AI on your exact coding style. You know, like telling it, hey, never use these colors, or always write the tests first. They use .cursor ignore to hide sensitive passwords from the AI's context window. Then there's YOLO mode, which I love, where you literally allow the AI to just execute terminal commands on its own without asking permission. And pros are heavily using MCPs, or model context protocols, to pipe things like external browser logs directly into the AI's brain for instant debugging. When you combine all those pro workflows with those multi-agent swarms we talked about, you really achieve the core philosophy of Cursor 3.0. The gap between imagination and reality is shrinking to an instant. You're no longer bogged down by the friction of syntax. You're simply managing the flow of your ideas directly into deployment. Section 4. The future of specialized AI. What this $60 billion deal signals. Let's zoom out for a second. The reality is, coding is the ultimate AI market. Think about it. Unlike generating a poem or writing a marketing email where the quality is pretty subjective, coding outputs are strictly measurable. The reinforcement is immediate. The code either compiles and runs, or it breaks, right? The productivity gains are totally undeniable. And most importantly, enterprises have massive budgets and are eager to pay for anything that makes their engineers 10 times faster. Coding is really the very first profession to be genuinely captured and monetized by AI at an industrial scale. Which leaves us with this final kind of wild thought. If a company like SpaceX is willing to bet $60 billion, not on some generalized chatbot, but on a hyper-specialized workflow tool that orchestrates coding agents, is the generalized frontier AI race already over? Are we entering this new era where the real titans of tech will be these hyper-specialized, multi-billion-dollar AI agents that completely capture specific, lucrative professions? Really think about it. What specialized workflow is going to be captured next? Is it finance, medicine, law? The playbook has been written. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.